Today, I'm reviewing / critiquing 4 iOS developer portfolios. And the goal of these videos is to give you inspiration, ideas, what to do, what not to do when creating your own portfolio. And this is a running series. I'll link to the playlist down below. I've done a bunch of these. And before we dive in, let's talk about today's sponsor, Squarespace. Squarespace is a great way to get your iOS developer portfolio up and running very quickly. So head to squarespace.com/SeanAllen to get started. All right, on to the portfolios. First up, we have Martin Tamu. And Martin, the first thing that struck me when I saw this page was the photo's a little bit intense, just being honest. And I checked out your Twitter profile, and I think this is potentially a much better picture to use. It's a little more inviting. Again, just giving my opinion there. But what I especially liked about your portfolio is the story you told, or more specifically, the way you told it. Because what you say is, a little bit about you. We'll come back to this in a second. I think this can be improved. Section, the last app I worked on. Here's the last app. Your featured app. Here's the feature app. And then what I did in the past. And you kind of walk me through this story, which I like. And to be honest, like all portfolios tell this story. Here's what I'm working on. Here's what I did before. But it's the way you presented it and kind of the way you walked me through the path that I appreciated. As a user of viewing the website, I like that and it stood out to me. But let's talk about how you can improve these sections. So starting from the top, I think you can combine this About Me section because look how far I have to scroll to get to see your work, right? It's a little bit far. So I think this About Me section is redundant. What I think you can do is take this blurb right here and maybe move it up here under this section of hey, I'm Martin. Maybe make this a little smaller. I don't know, revamp it a little bit to basically combine these, because what I think you can do is go right from here, bam, right into your work, rather than making them take this extra step of scrolling. So that's one key thing. And the other thing I would change is the order, right? Here you have the last app you worked on. I understand you're going for chronologically, I get what you were going for, I think, but this is your featured iOS app. So to me, that says this is what you're most proud of. This is what you want people to see the most. So I would start with that, right? So going back to the top, bam, have this, move your About Me up here, bam, featured app right away. That's what I would do. And then, put last app I worked on. Again, assuming your featured app is the thing you're most proud of and the thing you want to show off most. So continuing on to this, what I did in the past. Now here's a little, I don't know if maybe this is unique to me. I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments. But I like the fact that you showed you working at your setup, because your setup is nice and clean. It's a really nice setup. And again, maybe this is just me. Maybe I'm weird. I think that is a powerful signal, as weird as that sounds, because to me, it shows you're clean, neat, organized, you care about that kind of stuff. And I have found more often than not, that translates to your code base. And to me, some of the most important things about a code base are the readability, the cleanliness, the ease of use, how organized it is. And if you out there have worked in a code base that's not organized, hard to read, hard to use, it's a nightmare. So maybe this is a completely wrong signal. Maybe Martin writes horrible code. I don't know. But to me, it is giving a signal that he writes clean code and he values that kind of stuff. So I like that you showed your setup. Now onto the projects part, and this is where I think we can definitely have a lot of improvements, because when somebody digs into your projects, they want to learn more, right? You've kind of gotten past that first hurdle. They want to dig deeper. So right here, you just give them a wall of text, as you can see for your 2 apps. A wall of text are never good, right? People just bail after that. So take the opportunity here to show some screenshots, maybe break this up a little bit. I mean, there's numerous ways you can design it, but I would show 3 to 4 screenshots along with all these details. But yeah, the wall of text, not great. I mean, you kind of do it down here, right? We're showing off some screenshots on your demo apps. Now, I'm not in love with this layout. It took me a second to get my bearings, how it kind of zigzags. I mean, it's not that complicated. I get it, but that extra second of getting your bearings, a little jarring. So I would just be consistent, maybe all screenshots across the top and the blurbs across the bottom. And then the other thing I would do is add phone mockups to the outside of these, especially this news app one that blends in with the white background. I mean, if we go back to your homepage, you clearly know how to do phone mockups, right? You did them here, you did them here. So it's not like you don't know how to do it. So I would definitely add the phone mockups. It adds that little extra, level of polish. Next up, we have Brian Kim. And Brian is a classic example of having to scroll way too far to see your work. Look how far I'm scrolling. Now we see your work. And this brings up a good time for me to show these scroll heat maps. I've talked about them in the past, but I've never showed them. So if you were never sure of what I meant by that, let's take a look at these real quick. I just Googled scroll heat maps, by the way, and went to images. But if you look here in the upper right, this is essentially what that means. Red is what basically everybody sees, because when they come to your website, right, they don't have to scroll. That's automatically what they see. But you can see as you have to make people scroll further, people drop off, right? So hardly anybody sees the bottom of your site. Now, admittedly, These are typically for, when people are Google searching and trying to find something, right? When somebody comes to your portfolio, they're coming there to learn more about you. So the drop off may not be as drastic, but I still do believe the concept applies. So if you've never seen these scroll heat maps, I think this is very interesting and something to keep in mind when building your portfolio. And this is the reason why I always say, put the important stuff at the top. Don't make people scroll. Don't bury it in links, because you want people to see your best stuff. So Brian, again, look, I'll do it again real quick. I got to scroll pretty far to see your projects. And then this little blurb right here, you co-founded an LLC to work with content creators building their brands and merchandise. Cool. But what does that have to do with iOS development? Especially, why is that above your projects? So again, information hierarchy, I think, is something a lot of people struggle with. And to keep it simple, just put your best stuff as high as possible in the scroll hierarchy, if you will. So now let's talk about some of these projects down here. So I think you're wasting valuable, well, actually, let me back up a second, because I think you should put Card Store above this image bin one, because to be perfectly blunt and honest, this is more interesting looking, right? This is pretty bland, to be blunt. So again, back to putting your best stuff towards the top, I think your hierarchy is all messed up. But let's talk about this visual real estate. You show some login screens here, and I get what you're doing, right? You want to show that you can authenticate a user with Firebase and all that stuff. That's just not that interesting. I would put that over here in the words that, hey, this app authenticates users with Firebase. Cool. I think that gets the point across. I don't think you need to show that. I would show more interesting things in the app. Now, this app looks fairly simple, so maybe there's not more interesting things. But if that is the case, even more reason to show this one first, because this does look more interesting. And I like that this one has a story behind it. You can see here that you wanted to get feedback from people prior to building the application. So you sent out a small survey. It shows you did the whole product journey. You surveyed customers, you took their feedback, then you built the product. That's a great story to tell, for a developer. So again, I think this should be more towards the top. And then kind of what I said with Martin, again, use the phone mockups, especially since you're using a black background on these black screenshots. They just blend in too much. This is a giant screenshot, but you can kind of see how that's confusing. It may not look like that at first. And then these two down here, I don't believe they're phone screenshots. They're just normal screenshots. So your screenshot layout is a little confusing. Again, I think if you put the phone mockups around them, that really clears things up and just adds that extra level of polish. Moving on to Joe Pham, and you already know what I'm going to say, right? A lot of wasted space up top. Luckily, Joe, I think this is an easy fix. I think you just move your face, maybe make it a little smaller, move it to the left of your name, over here, and then just have, face and then Joe Pham, and then that moves this whole thing up to here. Bam, problem solved. I think that's an easy fix. So we'll move on, because I always mention that. Now, your projects, so I'm going to talk about this separately, because I think your visual layout of the projects is great, right? You show screenshots, multiple different devices, you give a little blurb, although some of your blurbs I think could be just a little bit more longer, maybe one extra sentence. Like I say, you don't want to go too far with this wall of text type stuff, but I think on some of these, you went a little too short, right here. So I think you need to go just a tad bit longer. Again, maybe one more sentence to explain more detail about the app. So again, I think your visual layout is really good here. And again, you link to the source code, you link to the App Store links, all that good stuff. What I want to talk about though, and I think this is a good lesson for those of you out there, because I know many of you watching may not have full-blown apps on the App Store or have worked at companies, and all you have are tutorial apps. So the reason I bring that up is this is nothing but tutorial apps that he's followed, from Paul Hudson's 100 Days of Swift. This is one of my tutorials. None of these apps are your own. And that's fine. That's not what I want to discuss here. I want to discuss the being upfront about it. And you do disclose it, right? If we use this one up here, right? This today, right? This is an Apple tutorial, right? There's no mention that this was a tutorial here. And then you clicked on source code. And then your READMEs are good here, right? I love a good README. You talk about what you'd used. You show some screenshots. But again, even in this blurb here, no mention of a tutorial. And then down here in the acknowledgement, kind of the fine print, it says the Today app is a code-along project on the tutorial from Apple developer. Now, Joe, I'm not saying you're being malicious or you're trying to hide this fact. But if somebody who didn't know you or didn't know the situation, looked at your portfolio and the conclusion they came to was oh, I had to really dig into it. And then I found out that was just a tutorial. It wouldn't be unreasonable for them to think that you were trying to hide it. Again, I'm not saying you were, but sometimes perception is reality. So I wouldn't even leave that door open for that perception. So that's the point to you, Joe, as well as anybody else that's using tutorials in their portfolio. Perfectly fine. Just make it very, very clear that this is a tutorial. And you mentioned in a lot of these projects that you took this tutorial and then you built more stuff on top of it. You added features to it, and that's great. That's what you should focus on. Like, I think you should say, like, at the top of these, like, hey, this was a tutorial I followed for the basic app. Here's what I built on top of it. And that should be the focus. And that's what I would lean into overall for your portfolio, right? Because I'm assuming you say up here, you're a programming student. So I assume you're just a student, you're just learning, perfectly fine. But like, lean into that. Say, hey, I'm a student, I'm just learning. Here's the project I use as a base. Here's, what I built on top of it. And here's why I did that. Like, I would just kind of lean into that angle. Again, speak your truth. Don't try to pretend you're something that you're not yet, and I'm not saying you're doing that, but I could see where somebody would look at this and think that, because again, you buried the attribution and all that stuff. Now, I also think the thing that's most interesting about you, Joe, is down here at the bottom. And I think this is great, but again, it's that information hierarchy thing. It's all the way at the bottom. Again, what I think is, well, by the way, get rid of this. I've said this time and time again. This tells the person nothing. Just throwing a bunch of logos of languages up there, irrelevant. It's a waste of space, right? Like, are you an expert at all of these? Are you a beginner at all of these? Like, there's no context, so a complete waste of time. If you do want to show languages, maybe show the Swift logo and say, here's what I've done in Swift. Here's what I've done in HTML and CSS. Here's what I've done in JavaScript. Like, give examples of like what you've done to kind of showcase your level of competence in these. Because just throwing the logos out there, complete waste of time, tells me nothing. Okay, rant over there. Now, this is what I found most interesting, your contributions. Because this is different, this is unique, right? You say this up here in your intro that, on the side, I'm currently the sole Vietnamese language translator contributing to localization projects of several App Store apps. Great, and you showcase that down here. That's awesome. You're going above and beyond, contributing to the community, helping out other indie developers translate their app. That's awesome. Like, this should be way towards the top. This should be the highlight. I think that's really unique about you. However, I don't think you should showcase screenshots of their app, because again, you're kind of showcasing other people's work. I think these screenshots would be great if these screenshots were the Vietnamese translation, right? You're showing the fruits of your labor. Like, look, I translated this app. Here's the app. But at least to me, like, showing the product screenshots of other people's apps, I don't know about that. Again, if this broadcast app was showing your Vietnamese translation, awesome. So that would be my little note on that. But like I said, Joe, overall, the layout, the feel, the look, I really like it. I think you're off to a great start. Just some of those notes that I gave you, I think you can definitely improve this. Now, if you're watching this and getting all kinds of ideas and inspiration for your own portfolio, I highly recommend checking out Squarespace to get that up and running very quickly. Now, I know as developers, we always have the tendency to want to build things on our own. But gotta remember, there's an opportunity cost to your time. And learning web development, building and maintaining your own website for all the different browser compatibilities, all the different screen sizes, like, that is a time investment. And I don't know about you, I would rather spend my time continuing to learn and get better as an iOS developer, build great apps, not mess around with maintaining a website. So I always say, let Squarespace handle that for you. They have all kinds of beautiful themes. They handle all the SEO and the analytics for you. It's just a great way to take the task of building your iOS developer portfolio just completely off your plate. So when you're ready to start building it, go to squarespace.com. And when you're ready to launch the website, go to squarespace.com/Sean Allen for 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. Last up, we have Nikola. And there's a couple key lessons here why I wanted to feature this one. I won't beat the dead horse of the not great use of the top. Real quick to fix this, like, I like that you showcase your writer, your photographer. I like showcasing your other hobbies, but I think you can do that more concisely up here with just, developer, writer, photographer. I think that gets the point across. You save so much space, less scrolling. Okay, I won't beat that dead horse. Everybody needs to improve their hero section, pretty much. But let's talk about your apps. Firstly, I would showcase screenshots here. Again, don't make me dig. Move the good information up to the top kind of thing. We've been over that 1,000 times. But what I really want to showcase here is broken links. And I see this on a lot of portfolio websites, and I want to talk about why this is a big deal. So let me show you what I mean. First of all, I come down here, I click on this big app icon, thinking I'm going to learn more about this random quotes app. So I click on it. Okay, that's not what I expected. And then another example, right? If I do go to the product page, we'll come back to the product page because I do want to talk about that. But if I hit this press kit in the upper right, oh, that's interesting. What's in the press kit? Nothing. I just go back to the website. So the reason this is a big deal, let me go back to the homepage here, is, your portfolio, your advertising, you're trying to get people to let you build their software for them. So your website is a reflection of that. If your website is all kinds of broken links, to me, that sends the bad signal, right? I talk about all kinds of signals that are being sent. Even though you may not have, built the underlyings of the website, there's still broken links and your website's not behaving as expected. To me, that just shows a lack of attention to detail, and I wouldn't want somebody building my software, my app, whose website has this kind of stuff on it. And I know it may not seem like a big deal. I get that, but again, I just value attention to detail as a software developer. You know, handling all the edge cases, handling all the weird stuff when you build software, like you have to have high attention to detail. And I think this shows that it's lacking. So Nikola, I'm not picking on you, not bashing you. I know this is probably a very simple fix, but the lesson here to those out there who are building their portfolio is remember, it's a representation of you and how you build software. So make sure you clean this stuff up. Okay, now onto the product pages. So overall, let me actually make this smaller. I have it blown up for my screen for the video. It doesn't normally look that big, but so I made this more normal size, but I like the general direction of this product page, right? I like these kind of bullet points with icons showing what the app does. However, I think we're confusing two purposes here, because this feels like a sales page. This feels like you're trying to get me to download and use your app, which is fine. It's fine to have a sales page for your products, of course, but on your iOS developer portfolio, like the context you're in and the point you're trying to do is like, you're trying to show people what you can do. Like, here's what I can do. Here's how I can build apps. So a sales page isn't really the direction you want to go. It's fine to show what the app can do, but I would add a whole section or a blurb like talking about the technical stuff. Like, I built this in Swift. Here are the frameworks I use. Here's what I did. Like, get technical with it. Show what you can do rather than just a sales page. So that's the big thing I would do with your product pages on your iOS developer portfolio. More about what you can do, less about sales, if you will. So back here, the other thing, actually, let me go back, right? You see this product page? Like I said, I like the layout, like the direction it's going. But when I go here, we're going to talk about inconsistency here. Okay, now let me click on this VAT number app, find out more. Completely different landing page, completely different setup, no bulleted points. It's inconsistent. And again, when you're building your apps, your products, like consistency is a big thing. So again, your website being a reflection on the type of software you build, again, I just don't think that's a good signal there. So I would be consistent in your product pages. And then the last lesson is the blog, because I do love showcasing the blog, but it's a double-edged sword. It can hurt you as much as it can help you if you do it wrong. And Nikola, I think this is a case where it might hurt you. And again, I know it seems like in some of these I'm being harsh, but I'm not doing it to pick on people. I'm doing it to help them improve and to also show people like some of the pitfalls you may run into. So anyway, this blog post is called A/B Testing for ASO, App Store Optimization, Ultimate Guide. I don't know about you. When I see Ultimate Guide, I'm thinking, okay, this person is an expert on this, or if they're not an expert, they've had tons of experience with it. This is going to be very long and detailed. I'm going to learn a lot. Like, that's what an ultimate guide is to me. However, the blog post itself falls short. Essentially, what the blog post is what this line right here, examples of what to test, right? I mean, you do give like 1 or 2 sentences on what A/B testing is, but other than that, you just say, hey, you can A/B test your brand name and logo. You can A/B test your description. You can A/B test your screenshots. You just kind of list the stuff that you can A/B test, and it's actually a pretty short like blog post. You don't really learn all that much for what is an ultimate guide. And I'm not picking on you. Again, I think a simple fix here is just to set the expectations accordingly. Like, just don't change the title. Don't call it an ultimate guide. Call it examples of things to test for A/B testing. You know, like just basically, this should be the title, what I just highlighted, right? And again, this is all about setting the expectations of the reader, because the headline makes me think this is going to be very in-depth. I'm going to learn a ton, and the blog post falls short of that. Now, the reason I went on that rant is what I talked about, the blog being a double-edged sword. Because if this ultimate guide really was very in-depth and I could tell you had a ton of experience with it, like that is a huge boost and a great signal for you. That would be an example where the blog really, really helps you. However, I think this is an example where the blog could potentially hurt you. But Nikola, the bright side is I think it's just a simple title change to set the expectations. But I don't want to like scare you off from sharing your blog post, because I do think that is very valuable. And if you are just learning, don't be afraid to write blog posts. Here's what I'm learning. But again, it's all about the framing, right? Say, this is what I just learned recently. I'm not an expert, but I wanted to share what I've learned. That sets the framing perfectly. When you say something like ultimate guide, you frame yourself as an expert. And then when you fall short of that, it's just not a good look. So anyway, that's my note on the blog. And again, Nikola, I'm not picking on you. I'm trying to help you out. And it's a simple fix. Just change the title. So that wraps it up for this round of portfolio reviews and critiques. Hopefully you were inspired. Hopefully you got some ideas for your own portfolio. And if you want to see more, I'll link to a whole playlist. I've done like 8 or 9 of these reviewing all kinds of different portfolios. All right, we'll see you in the next video.